and it'll make your groomer like you better if you use a groomer in between groomings. And then if you don't you feel good about yourself that you've accomplished this and can do this on your own. I have a gal that comes here and uses my equipment. She's got 3 standers, and I used to laugh at her because I would help her, and she would say, I've got all of them brushed out. They're all brushed out. And she would come, and I would take my comb, which is always my checker, and I would say, so you've got them all brushed out, Jane? And she'd say, yeah, they're all done. And I would take my comb, and instead of getting this effect, which is going completely through the hair, it would go and stop. And that's because Jane thought she was brushing it out, but most people only brush the top, but you have to get down to the hairline at the base of the skin to really get your brushing done. This is how you do legs, and one of the things to remember is you always want to brush away from you, so we don't want to brush down. So we want to take this leg, and you saw me missed it, and you do the same technique that we did on the body. Just kind of pick the hair up, and you'll see it fluff up nicely, and you just work your way up. Really, the biggest trick to brushing successfully is training your dog to lay quietly. If you're having to wrestle a dog, which is something that the professional groomers really hate, is you can't get a really pretty look on a dog if you're fighting the dog the whole time you're grooming it. So the most important thing that I can tell anybody is train your dog, start your puppy early, teach it to lay still, make the grooming process enjoyable instead of like torture, and then they learn to feel really good, and they like being pretty, and they like being brushed out and clean. And brushing shouldn't be painful. It should be enjoyable and something that they look forward to, because in the long run it's a healthy process for their coat and skin. And how we do it then is we do the opposite leg while she's laying on this side. Do your mist. And I'm extremely fast because of obviously the years that I've done this. Obviously you're not going to get it done as fast as I do it. The more you brush, the better you'll get. This could take someone who doesn't do it often and have a lot of practice 20 or 30 minutes a leg, whereas I can do it in a third that time. The more matting you have, the longer it's going to take you. But you'll see that I'm not brushing the dog's skin. I'm brushing the hair, and I'm lifting the hair away from the dog's skin so that she doesn't get the brush burn. I have problems in my shoulder, so sometimes I don't always brush like I should. I have to hold the brush differently, which could be a problem for people that do have problems in their shoulders. But for the most part, that's pretty easy. Then you go back through with your comb and you check your work. And what it will do is, if you haven't brushed it out properly, it will pick it up and it will show you where the problem area is. And that's a brushed out bracelet. Okay, Gianna is now brushed out on this side. We brushed all of the bracelets out. We can check it with the comb, and the comb floats through fairly easy. And then I want to show you what the unbrushed side looks like. Gianna, come. So I think that you can see a big difference in brushed out versus not brushed out. We're going to put her down now and brush out the ear and the top knot on this side. I don't know what this is a real cute little deal. You can pick these up at Walmart. We actually won this one at a dog show. And they're little pillows. Put your head down. And they will lay on them. Kind of makes it easier for them. You don't have to have one, but I kind of like doing things that make my dogs more comfortable, especially if they have to stay on the table for any length of time. The whole idea is to make it be fun and not torture. You can make a game out of it, give them a big good treat or something when they're all done. You'll see Jenna's little dance when she's done. She always has these little dances she does, like, oh, look how pretty I am. And you just do the same thing with the underside of the ear. Some of the blue dye is now turning purple. We did this for fun, colored her, and it does wash out, so it's not even. When we first did her, she was like a beautiful cobalt blue all over. Jenna does have really good texture for a poodle. A lot of the poodles have really soft coat. That's not correct coat. Correct coat is really where you want it to feel almost like a Brillo pad. And that's in adult coat. Puppies have real soft coat just by virtue of their puppies, and it's puppy coat. So now we have this ear brushed out. And we're going to do the top knot. And that's the white is how much has grown out since we dyed her. So they grow on average a ½ inch a month. So when you see these dogs in show coat with all this hair, you can just imagine how many months it took to grow that hair and the hard work that went into keeping that coat in condition. And then again we do the check with the comb. And we're all fluffed out. One of the best investments I ever made was buying this lift table. When I was grooming for the public, I do toys and miniatures, and you need them at all different heights for different things. So I bought the lift table, and we don't ever let the dogs jump up or jump off. We lift them down so that they don't get injured. It also teaches them to stay on the table at the shows. Stand up, baby. So, it's Jenna. Poodle dance! Woo! Big poodle dance! I'm pretty now. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Hi, we're going to do the ear cleaning portion of this video. This is Ian. He's a Jenna son, and he's going to have a bath here shortly and get his top knot redone. But we're going to do the ear portion. We purposely didn't pull the ear hair out the last time we did him so that we would have some ear hair for this video. Okay, we're going to start by placing powder in the ear, and you want to work it down into the ear. And you can spread the ear canal, and we're going to put a little bit more down in the ear. Now, some people will shave the inside of the ear. With him, we need as much hair as we can for showing, so we're just going to pull the hair. I try to pull a good bit of it with my fingers, and this particular powder, again, is some that I personally mix up, and it works really, really well. But as you can see, I'm not pulling all of it at once. Some groomers will do that. I'll only do that if I have a dog that I know that does not like its ear hair pulled and only gives me one chance to do that. Now we're getting into the longer hair, and I'm going to take my hemostats, and I'm just going to pull. And I try to pull too much, and that's what'll happen. And so if you have a dog that really has tender ears, you don't want to take all of it out at once. You want to just pull a little bit at a time. Good boy. It's okay, Ian. I'm going to come behind him and do the rest from behind. Lay down. Lay down. And so I'm just not pulling a lot at once. That way it's not as uncomfortable. I always pull the ear hair out before I groom. That way if the canal is really dirty, I can use my Hydrosurge to clean it out. If you wait and pull it out after, then you're going to have a lot of wet hair. And something I do want to point out is that a dog's ear is like an L. So his ear goes, the canal goes straight down like that, and then it turns in. As long as you go straight down, and you can see how far down I'm going, my finger's here, and here's the things, this is safe. You just don't ever want to turn in. So literally that's how far that the hair can be growing out of the ear, is from as far as that point you saw where the hemostats were. And I just, a lot of times I work from behind for part of the ear, and sometimes I work from the front. It's just whatever the dog is most comfortable doing. And that would be a very clean ear canal. Good boy, Ian. Okay, this is a 11-week-old standard puppy. She's actually a show puppy that's going to go to Las Vegas. We're going to groom her. This is going to be how you can do face, feet, and tail. And then I'll actually scissor on this dog, so there won't be any body clipper work, but this will be a good way to show face, feet, and tail. This is the mini Arco that I talked about. Now this particular clipper is very quiet, and they like it because it's not noisy and doesn't scare them. It has only one blade on it, which is a 30 blade, and I always use a 30 on my puppies and dogs. Some people with dogs that have sensitive skin can't do anything but a 15, or they'll get clipper burn, but because they're used to it, they'll do it. So we start the face, and good girl, and just go against the grain. I try not to hold my dogs around the muzzle because they don't like it, and it's kind of a scare tactic. Groomers that do like this usually have more problems with the dogs. So we start at the corner of the eye and work to the nose, and then we'll go right here. This puppy has only been groomed about 3 times, but I wanted to use this puppy because she's light colored and you can see. The line that you want to go is from the corner of the eye straight back to the ear. So I block it like this. Good girl. Good girl. And then you would go back against the grain just a little bit. Okay, good girl. And then we go to the muzzle again. It's always against the grain. Get you a much cleaner, crisper look. And then for the eye, from the eye here, and then you want to take out the inside of the ear. These puppies' ears are kind of dirty because they've been outside playing in the dirt. And I always like to just take out a little bit on the inside of the ear for less plucking later. And then you locate their Adam's apple. Sit. Which is, if you start up here and just slide your hand down, the Adam's apple's right here. Rule of thumb is, for a standard, you go 1 inch below the Adam's apple. So, stop. It's okay. Something you can do for a dog that doesn't want to stand and behave. They really hate, like, motion under their feet. So you can support them. You put your hands in between their pelvic and their chest, and you just rub their feet across the table like this. If they don't like it, and they'll stand. So now we're going to go down and do our line like that, and then you come up. Something that's really important that a lot of people don't understand is how you hold your clippers. You don't want to hold your clippers like this. You always want the clipper to be up against the skin smooth. That makes for a really smooth cut. When you see a lot of nicks and gaps, it's because the clipper was not held properly. So now we're going to come over here and we're going to do this side. Come here. Come here. I don't fight the dogs. If they seem like they don't want to do one thing, I'll try to get their mind off of it and do something else, which generally seems to work. I always want it to be something good, not something bad. So, if it's something they're not particularly fond of, stop. No, be good. I'll come back to it later, or I'll do what's comfortable for them, which this puppy seems to like it better when her head's down, so I don't really care. I can do it either way. Of course, I'm not so sure how I'd like it if somebody was buzzing a clipper in my ear. So then you do your line again like this, straight down, and you come back against the grain, come up, stop just short of that line I did from the ear to the eye. Stop. Talk to them, praise them when they do good, ignore bad behavior. A lot of people will bathe the dogs first. If they're really grown out, the faces, which I try to do mine every 2 weeks, I will bathe first, because what happens, what causes clipper burn a lot of times is clippers on dirty hair. So what I will do is, if they're really, really nasty and really, really grown out, I will bathe them before I do their faces. There's 2 theories on clipping dirty versus clipping clean. When we pet groom, obviously we don't want, if a dog comes in really dirty and matted, we don't want to have to dry all that hair. So we clip first and then bathe and dry. If it's in good shape, I would bathe it first and then clip. I do that with a lot of my dogs a lot of time, and that also saves on your blades. Dirty hair will dull your blades much faster. So the main thing is having good equipment, keeping your blade sharp. If a blade stops cutting, you can try a spray to spray on the blade. I always spray them after I use them, so that any hair, dirt, or debris floats out and it's not. Stop. Stop. Good girl. I'm sure this tickles around her muzzle. And then I always see this, and it always causes me to say, well, why couldn't they have done that better? I have a real fetish about clean faces and clean feet. Sit. Good girl. So what you do, because this skin right here sucks up into the mouth of the dog, these are called fleas. You don't want to cut them. So I always take the skin and stretch it back, stay off the flue, and then you get that nice little clean right there. A lot of times you'll see a dog and it's got hair sticking out right there. Well, that's because whoever's grooming it is not pulling the skin tight and getting it completely clean. And I'll show you what I'm talking about on the other side, because I won't do it and you'll see what I mean. Stop. Good girl. Stop. Or actually, I guess I did do it. Didn't mean to. We'll try it on another dog that we're going to groom later. Stop. So then I might, you know, pick up their lip and do that right there to make sure that I got all the little sticky outies. Then on the nose, you go back toward the nose, and that will pick up any hairs that you missed when you came down on the nose. We generally stop here across the eye. When we do a show puppy, we leave it out, so that is what creates the bubble later on when they're showing.
And this is a very sweet puppy. Yes, it's a very good girl.
Okay, so that's her face. And now we're going to do feet. I do most of my work from behind. I have people all the time go, and even other groomers, they can't believe how clean my feet are. I do what's easiest for me, and over the years I've found a lot of shortcuts. One of the things that I do is I do a lot of my feet clipping from behind. And this is sort of how it works. You pick the foot up and you just draw your imaginary line across the back of the foot, and then you do the foot. And we're going to have a little bit of training time here. Stand up. Good girl. These puppies are starting to go into their first fear stage, so everything that they've been used to up to now, they like don't want to do it anymore. And the thing is a lot of times when I groom for the public, I'd have dogs that people tried to groom themselves or were groomed by someone else. And the worst thing you can do is, if they don't want you to do something, is to stop doing it. I mean, I may move on to something else if I see the dog stressed, but I always, no matter what, make them do what I set out to do, because by not making them do it, it's just reinforcing that if they're bad, then they can get away with it. And this puppy doesn't want to do it. But we're going to do it. Yes, aren't we? Yes, we are. So if you take and you just scoop out in between the pads of the feet, you're going to have less to clean from the front side of the foot. You have to be comfortable with your equipment. And although none of us ever want to cut a dog, invariably it will happen. It's not the end of the world. But we do want them to have an enjoyable experience. So we try very hard not to do that. And there's the back of that foot. Next foot, ma'am. No, ma'am. Stand. Good girl. Sometimes if you come up between their back leg and just lift them up like that, kind of catches them off guard. They really can't do a whole lot. The main thing is you don't want to bend their legs to injure them. And so I have her supported, and she's not bent in a way that's going to hurt her structure, her bones. She is a growing puppy. Kind of sometimes you have to get the tail out of the way. But you just scoop. It's kind of like scooping ice cream, I guess, would be a comparison. Showed this to a couple people and they were just amazed. They couldn't believe that the way they'd been doing it was so hard, and this is much easier. You start at the base of the nail and go this way, and then scoop, and it gets most of it off the other side. And there you have it. And then we'll go on to the next foot. If you have to tuck the tail up under the foot, you can do that. Puppies are hard. They need breaks. Once you train them, you can do everything without stopping. Sometimes If I feel the dog tense up and it acts like it's not comfortable anymore, I'll stop, give it some kisses, tell it it's been good, and then just go back to work. This puppy's trying to be good, but I'm sure this tickles. So we're going to give her a break. Sit.
Good girl. He's a good baby. You should give me some sugars. He's a good girl. Yes, hers is. Hers is. Okay.
And I always like to give them a lot of praise if they've done good, and she is doing good for a baby. I wanted to do a white or a cream. It's easier to see what you're doing than on a black or a blue dog. One of the things that little girl puppies do, you may notice this dark right here. When they're little and they're learning to pee, they usually squat on the ground and they start peeing, and then they get up and run off to play with the litter mate. They don't realize they're still peeing, so the pee dribbles down on the leg, and then the next time they're playing, somebody rolls them over in the dirt, and then the dirt sticks to the leg. So it's important to clean out the vulva area so that the water, the pee and urine don't scald. And so this is how I do this. Stop. Stop. Good girl. Turn around. Good girl. Some groomers don't do this. A lot of owners don't like you to see this body part. It's very important actually on a girl, not so much on a boy, but on the girls. This hair is just like a wick, and it keeps the moisture there. And my blades are wanting to go dull on me.
We're rolling.
There are a lot of products that will cool your blades or lubricate your blades while you're spraying, and you run it and you'll watch the dirt drip off at the bottom, and then it evaporates relatively fast. So this is the part about dirty, what blades dull. When you're doing dirt, the blades will dull very quickly, but if you use the spray, it'll lubricate it, and then you can keep using that blade. So that's all completely cleaned out under there. We're going to clean out some of that hair there, and this side's done. Usually what I do on the other front foot, because I don't want to bend it and affect the puppy's growth, is I'll hold it out to the side like that a little bit. I always try to support them, make them know that I'm here and that I'm not trying to hurt them. Stop. Easy. Good girl. No, you're not kicking. Some of them will actually kick almost like a horse. It's kind of funny. I see that more in the toys and miniatures than the standards. She's trying to lick me to distract me, making me think that if she licks me, then I'll quit. This will be a point where I wouldn't stop, because she's trying to convince me otherwise that she doesn't want to be groomed, and I'm just not going to let her win. So we're just going to keep going, and we're going to let her lick and tell her no, no. Stop. Stop. Nope. Actually, she's trying to do that little kicky thing too. Stop. Nope. Okay, so there's the back side of that foot. Very clean and nice. We're going to turn her around. That's how we do the front side. Just kind of draw an imaginary line straight across. Same as I did at the back. I'll show you a trick on the front feet. It's just kind of hard to do it on the back feet. Now, where you start is if you bring your hand down, and you'll feel the bones right here at the base of the foot widen out. That's where you want your imaginary line to be. A lot of people bring them way up here. We call them high waters. It's kind of funny looking. But it's just because they don't really know where to stop or where to start. So I do it this way to get my line. And then we go back against the grain again. Then we do the little toes. And then this is a trick that someone taught me years ago. And this is what makes the cleanest. You take your finger and stick it up between the pads of the toes. And that kind of brings everything up to where you can get to it. And then you have really clean in between the toes. I've seen a lot of dogs that were groomed. This outside part looked really good, and you had all these sticky outies coming out the middle of the foot. And if you'll take your finger and always push up, and then scoop with it pushed up, you'll get it all. Because standards do have web feet. They were raised for retrievers, water dogs, and you want to get what's out in between of the webbing. Works really well. Then you can see what you missed. Go back in and scoop it out. There's a clean foot. Now on the front feet, it's easier to do it on a grown dog than it is a puppy because their feet are so small. But if you'll do this, if you'll take your hand and just run it down on the foot, use this finger as your guide, and I call this blocking, and you just block a straight line across. Saves a lot of scissor work later. We would never do this with a show dog, which we would, scissor it all, but since this is a pet grooming video, we can use some little shortcuts and cheat. That's what I call cheating. Oops. That's really actually good that she did that. That teaches them the boundaries. If you have a dog that's not wanting to be really still and wants to act up on the table, sometimes if you let them step a foot off like that and they learn where the edge of that table is, they don't want to fall off the table, so then they'll be good and not move around and wiggle on you. Now we're going to go this way. Again, I'm spreading the toe. Good girl. Yes, it's a good baby. Okay. And sometimes if you have a hair that's like sticking in, you can't get it. If you just take your finger, your thumbnail, and kind of scratch it, it'll pull it away from the nail bed, and then you can really get a nice, clean, crisp foot. There you go. Next foot, please, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Good girl. A good puppy. You're such a good girl. We start grooming our puppies at 3 to 4 weeks of age. So this puppy's been groomed 3 times. And it's good to start them early. We have some backyard breeders around here, and they raise toys and miniatures, and for some reason they seem to tell their puppy buyers, oh, don't get the puppy cut until it's 6 months old. Well, we usually don't cut their body hair, but we always want to start face, feet, and tail as soon as possible. I tell people, as soon as they buy a puppy, if they buy it from a breeder who has not done any grooming on it, get it to a groomer right away so they can start training. The younger they start, the better they do, the more they like it. They don't find it scary. See, this puppy's just licking me to death. She just kind of thinks it's really fun. And, you know, the more they do it, the better they get. Yes, I don't need my hair eaten. No, I don't need my hair eaten. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So that is clean foot number 3. Now, on the back feet, it gets a little challenging because sometimes they don't cooperate, and you don't want to hold the foot way up here, and that could possibly damage their hips. So what I do is I'll come from the other side and hold the foot forward, and again I'll block my straight line. And for people that are just starting out, they're gonna have to feel where that bone is every time. I've done it so many times, I know where that bone is. So always, if you're concerned about where to block, then just feel for the bone, and that'll tell you where you should be doing that. The whole idea to have clean feet, I've had people that come in and go, oh, I don't want them to have poodle feet. Well, what happens is all this hair down here is a wick. So what it does when they go outside in the grass and play, all that water sits right here on this foot. Can be a breeding spot for bacteria and fungus. One of the other things is, if you don't clean the hair out of between the pads, we're in the house on the hardwood floors or the linoleum, they slip, fall, and can possibly hurt themselves. So when the hair is cleaned out between the toes, then the pad actually can grip the surface that they're walking on, and they don't slide and fall as much. So there is foot number 4. We're going to do the tail. And one of my pet peeves is I see these dogs and their tails are shaved halfway up here, and there's this ball on the end. That's not a correct tail. Usually what you want to do is start at the base of the tail, which you can feel it, it's there. And you only come 2 inches. 2 inches, I'm going to say, or 1.5 inches on a puppy, 2 inches on a grown standard. And you just go with the grain, and you just come around to the tail, and you come over here and you do the same thing. Then you go to the back side. You can see this puppy's not concerned about this at all. She just wants to go investigate. So I'm going to chase her down the table, I guess. My puppies are handled a lot, so they're very, very good from early on. They know I'm not going to do anything to hurt them. At least I try not to ever hurt them. So now we've got around the rectum clean nicely. You've got this little patch of hair that if you comb it out, which I will comb this out, then that's going to cover pretty much most of the vulva. I do this mostly because it's a hygiene kind of thing. Okay, that's got the puppy clipped. Now we're going to do her toenails. And this, I usually for puppies, I'll put this on 2. Anything harder, and it's going to scare them, and I don't want to scare them. I don't want to hurt them. And you just nick off the white where you see the white. When we do it, I'm going to do toenails on a black dog because I know everybody has black dogs. And they're like, how do I do it on my black dog? So we will have one in the video that's black, and I'll show you. The main thing is you can see where this nail is wide and then it narrows. With a white tip on the end, you can see that's the quick. When you get to that wide part, that is where your quick is. So you just want to bump off the top. And then, if you will do this every 3rd day, if you have a dog with really long nails and you just bump them with the Dremel every 3rd day, you will run that quick back on that dog. If you don't do your dog's nails for 2 or 3 weeks, the longer that nail grows out, the more that quicks can run out. Long nails can cause all kinds of problems. have a dog that doesn't move properly, that can't walk properly because its nails are overgrown. It's one of the things that I see most in pets, and it causes a lot of health problems. The longer the nail, the harder the time the dog has walking. So there you go. Now we've got all the nails done. Now we're going to brush this puppy through. Start up here. Same technique as we used on Jenna. You see, they don't really mind it. Of course, with this we have much less hair, so it's much easier. What it'll do, several things. It'll lift the dirt off the skin, so when we wash, it's right there on the hair. So then it'll come up easily. Now on a puppy we don't have as much surface. I usually don't try to teach them to lay down until they're a little bit older. So you can brush them standing up. Same technique, just line brush. Put your foot down. Whoop. And then you just check it with a comb. I always check it first with the wide teeth, the coarser teeth, and then go back through with the fine. Now here I don't want to scratch your vulva or anything, so I just use the brush lightly. On puppies, one thing that you can do for the belly is this right here. Works pretty good. And this teaches them, you know, that they can do more than one thing besides just stand. They can stand up, and then we've got the belly brushed out, so we come back through and do the side. Puppies have no texture like the grown dogs do, so their hair is very soft and fine. A lot easier to brush actually and comb out. They usually start getting their adult coat